Have you ever tried to tell a story someone else told you, and you just get all tangled up trying to explain who said what? Yeah, it happens to the best of us, but getting it right is such a core part of communication. So in this explainer, we're going to master that exact skill, how to take what someone says directly and turn it into a clean report. And then, just for fun, we'll flip it and turn it right back again.
Okay, let's just dive right in. On the left, you've got direct speech. It's exactly what she said word for word, wrapped up nicely in quotation marks. Wait for my return. But look at the right. That's indirect speech. The message is the same, but the wording has been tweaked so it fits into the flow of a new sentence. That little switch is exactly what we're going to get the hang of today.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down the basic difference between quoting and reporting. Then we'll get into what I call the 3 golden rules that make this whole thing work. After that, we'll see how to handle tricky sentences like questions and commands. And finally, we'll put our new skills to the test and try to reverse the whole process.
All right, let's start with part 1. We need to get super clear on what we're actually doing when we switch between quoting someone directly and just reporting what they said.
Think of direct speech like hitting the record button on your phone. You're capturing the original audio exactly as it was spoken. Those quotation marks are basically your signal to the reader saying, hey, this is a perfect, unchanged copy of what was said. We're hearing Shahjuar's actual words.
Now, indirect speech or reported speech is more like you're a journalist writing a story. You're not playing a recording. You're summarizing the key information for your audience. The main point is still there, Shahjuar won, which is awesome, but you're weaving that fact into your own sentence. And that's why the quotes vanish and the grammar shifts around a bit.
Okay, now we're heading into the engine room. This is where the real work gets done. I want you to imagine a kind of conversion machine. It only has 3 main levers you need to pull. Once you know how they work, you can transform pretty much any sentence you want. Let's see them. And here they are. It really just comes down to these 3 steps. First, you tweak the pronouns, like I and you, so they make sense from your new perspective. Second, you shift the verb tense back 1 step, because you're talking about something that's already happened. And third, you update any words about time or place, like today or here. That's the whole process. Let's see how each step works.
First up, pronouns. This is all about point of view. When Shahjuar is speaking, she uses I. Of course she does. But when we're the ones telling the story, we're talking about her. So it just makes sense that I becomes she. It's a simple change to match who's doing the talking now.
Now for the big one. It even has a fancy name, tense backshifting, but the logic is actually super simple. You're reporting something that was said in the past, right? You use words like said or told. Well, that means the original action is now 1 step further in the past too, so the verb tense has to take 1 step back to keep up.
And this is a perfect example. In the moment he spoke, he said, I am learning, present tense. But when we report on it later, that moment is over. It was happening then. So am just naturally shifts back to was. It makes perfect sense in the timeline of events.
But, and this is a big but, watch out for this little exception. What if someone says something that's a universal truth? A fact that's always true, like gravity. We are standing on the Earth because of it. That fact is as true now as it was in Newton's time. For these timeless facts, the tense doesn't shift. It stays in the present.
And our third and final rule is all about context. Words like now, here, or tomorrow are totally dependent on when and where the speaker is. When we report what they said, maybe days later and from a different city, those words just don't work anymore. So we have to update them. Here becomes there, today becomes that day, and so on. And here it is, the whole machine working in perfect harmony. Let's break it down. Rule 1, the pronoun me becomes her. Check. Rule 2, the present tense verb gives backshifts to the past tense gave. Check. And rule 3, the time and place words here, this evening, get updated to there, that evening. Check. See? All 3 rules working together beautifully.
Okay, so we've got the rules for statements down pat. But what happens when people don't just make statements? What about when they ask questions or give commands? Well, the great news is our 3 golden rules still do most of the heavy lifting. We just need a couple of minor adjustments.
So let's take a look at a question. The officer isn't saying something, he's asking something. So right off the bat, our reporting verb is probably going to be asked instead of said. That's the easy part, but what else changes?
So here's the key trick. When you report a question, you actually turn it back into a statement. See how the word order flips? And then our other rules just kick in like normal. You becomes them, and the verb have fought back shifts to had fought. Easy peasy.
You're going to love how simple commands are. For these, you usually don't even have to worry about shifting the tense. You just take the main verb, in this case, buy, and stick the word to in front of it. Buy becomes to buy. Clean your room becomes to clean his room. It's so wonderfully straightforward.
Okay, time for the final boss level. We've mastered turning quotes into reports, but to really prove we get it, can we run the machine in reverse? Can we take a piece of reported speech and figure out what the person actually said? Let's find out.
All we have to do is apply our 3 golden rules, but backwards. The past tense verb was shifts forward to the present tense is. We can drop connecting words like that because we don't need them inside the quote. Then we just add our quotation marks, and boom, we've reconstructed the original quote, passion and all.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? It's that this isn't some huge, complicated grammar puzzle. It's really just one core process. First, know the difference between a direct quote and a simple report. And then just run through your checklist: pronouns, tense, and time/place words. If you can remember those 3 golden rules, you've got this. So I'll leave you with a final challenge to chew on. Here's a report. He exclaimed his strong desire for a glass of water. That's the indirect version, but what were his exact words? How would you turn that report back into a powerful, direct quote? Give it some thought. It's the absolute best way to make sure all of this really sticks.